I can hear the horns outside. It must be foggy down in the water. Yep. Anyways, what's going on, guys? Happy video game Christmas. It's E3 once again. Although it seems like the impact of E3 is getting less and less. I mean, like a lot of companies didn't even show up, including Sony this year, and one of the biggest things in their history ever happened. So this is just going to cover today. This is Sunday, the 9th of June, and we're going to talk about what they showed off so far and what we heard about. So before we get into anything from Microsoft, which really what I'm looking forward to this year is Microsoft, a little bit Ubisoft, because usually I have some kind of surprise with Nintendo, and I'm kind of curious what that is. And then they have the Nintendo conference. I'm more of a Switch gamer slash PC gamer, more Switch than PC, but you know, I still like both. And really all I saw today that I was really looking forward to was starting off Darksiders Genesis, which is a prequel to the original Darksiders, and you play as Strife or War. And the Darksiders series has had this tradition of taking different gameplay styles and running with it with each game. So like the first one was like almost like a Zelda game. The second one was more RPG based in that way. And the third was sort of more like Dark Souls, or it had elements of it. This one is actually overhead and has elements of Diablo. And it looks like it's two-player, and you can play as either Strife, seems like the main character, or if you're in there as a second player, you play as War, is what it looks like. I don't know if War is a companion. Alright, the other one I was really looking forward to is Jedi Fallen Order. And I wasn't disappointed. It is... You see elements of past Star Wars games, but I think everything I saw here was done much better than I saw in the past. I definitely saw aspects of Titanfall wall running and stuff like that, which is not a surprise seeing that it's the same studio that did do Titanfall and now Apex Legends. And what I did like about it is I didn't see like the force powers like way overused to make them too powerful. There is a limit. You do have to think about that. You also have to think about like things like stamina when you parry with your lightsaber and all that. So I'm a little bit more interested to see how that goes, but what I've seen so far, I'm very impressed. The art style looks good as well. The game's beautiful. And it looks like Forrest Whitaker is reprising his role as Saul Guerrero in this game. And it seems like it takes place a bit before Rogue One, but not too far. So I'm kind of wondering if we'll see Jen Erso as well. Okay, and then lastly, for me anyways, I did watch the Bethesda event, and I will tell you, largely what I saw there that I wanted to play is Doom. Wolfenstein Youngblood looks cool too, but I'm more in it for Doom, and Doom looks awesome. It's pretty much what I'm expecting. There's some good gameplay changes for the better, but they're very slight from what I can tell. And there is a embargo that's supposed to be up actually a few hours ago, so I'm sure more will come out about that, but I'm looking forward to Doom. Alright, so the Microsoft conference. Let me bring up my notes here real quick, because I actually had quite a bit here to look at. I've already seen YouTube's channels pop up and talk about the Microsoft conference and say, besides this, it sucked. And I'm sorry, I don't agree. For going into a new console generation, I thought this was very, very good. I was actually really impressed with what's going on here. And I'm excited for a lot of this stuff. So let's go down the list real quick. So we saw Ori and the Will of the Wisps. We already knew this was coming out. We just saw a little bit of a teaser on it. We know more is coming. They didn't say anything about a Nintendo Switch port. A lot of people were expecting a Nintendo Switch port, I think. I'm not really expecting that. I think people are building up the Microsoft and Nintendo partnership a little bit too much. We'll have to see later in the week if anything of that pans out a little bit more, but it's cool that they let stuff like Cuphead and stuff come over to the Switch. Like I said, it's a wait and see. I'm not like betting anything on it or whatnot. Miyamoto didn't come out today and say, hey, Ori's also coming to the Switch and Mario's going to Xbox. I know a lot of channels that were like, well, I heard Miyamoto was there, and then he didn't show up. This is the problem you have with a lot of YouTubers. See, I'm somebody that I like to look at things in a very equalized kind of way. I definitely have my bias, but I don't like to bring that to this channel, and I don't like to hype people up on something that's not, you know, it's mostly rumor based. And a lot of these YouTube channels will take something that's rumor based and report it like it's news, or really run with it to hype people up, and if people end up being disappointed, including themselves, which is a huge problem to me. You shouldn't. I'm not saying that YouTubers are technically professionals, but if you want to go to YouTube and have the same kind of reverence as somebody that does things professionally, you need to act professional yourself. And I'm not saying that there's not, that these people are acting out in a weird way or something. I'm saying you need to think about what you're reporting and what you're hyping up, and you need to understand that it just takes a small drop in the pond to get people going. But when you go on and you're like, oh, I saw Miyamoto's in the crowd, when there's no proof for that, and then have to go on later on and say, well, I guess Miyamoto didn't show up, I guess it was Keanu Reeves or something. No, you were running with this a little bit too much, and you need to be a little bit more measured in the way you present things. Anyways, rant over. That's just something that bugs me lately, and it seems like negativity in the gaming space is something that people have been really harping on lately. Like, when something isn't to somebody's expectations, they really get upset. Example, I will tell you, we're going off on a tangent. I told you I didn't like Star Wars The Last Jedi. Doesn't mean I hate it, doesn't mean it didn't turn out the way I didn't think it was. If I went back and looked at it in a measured way, and what I like in movies, it was not a good movie to me. That's the way I look at it. And then on top of that, I'm disappointed as a Star Wars fan, because it's, in my point of view, a bad movie and a Star Wars movie. I have many reasons for this, but I don't feel like anything was owed to me when that movie came out. And I think video games need to be looked at in the same kind of way. Alright, so then Ninja Theory came out and showed Bleeding Edge, a new game. Ninja Theory is one of the studios that Microsoft has bought. Microsoft has been going really heavy on buying new studios, which is great. I want to see them go out there and compete. And it seems like Microsoft is also taking the approach of trying to put their games in their game studios in many places as possible, whether it's your phone or whatever. So I think Google Stadia is going to have some competition. We'll talk about that a little bit here, some of my thoughts on that. But they showed Bleeding Edge off. It looked alright. It's probably not something I'm going to get into. It's got kind of like a Borderlands look to it, or Overwatch, like my friend Crafty said during the stream. But it's not something I'm looking forward to personally. Then very early on in the show, and I feel like they kind of, me and Crafty, I had the chat. If you guys want to see the whole Microsoft conference, it's already tagged in a bubble somewhere and probably at the end of this. But I did live stream the whole conference, and you guys can go look at that. Keanu Reeves is in Cyberpunk 2077, and when they first showed him, I was like, that guy looks just like John Wick. It didn't click in my head that it was Keanu until the door opened and it was actually Keanu Reeves. And you guys know he has this kind of huge cultural following after stuff like The Matrix and the John Wick movies. And I think that was a really good get by CD Projekt Red. I think he's perfect for this. I'm kind of curious to see how much he's actually in it. But yeah, to me, that was something they should have saved into the very end of the conference, because I think that's bigger than what they showed for Halo. I think more people are actually hyped up for Cyberpunk than there are people hyped up for the next Halo. I think a lot of people know what to expect from a Halo game. They don't know what to expect from a Cyberpunk, and I think that would have been a bigger blow to put that at the end of the conference. But either way, it's a cool announcement. So Microsoft came out and announced that they bought Double Fine Studios, which is cool. Tim came out and kind of made a joke that they'll make software for Excel and stuff, and he's like, no, we just want you to make games. He's like, woo, because I don't know how to do any of that stuff. It was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool moment. They showed more Psychonauts 2. Psychonauts 1 is one of the best games I think of all time. It's really good. I didn't play it until recently, a year ago, and I really enjoyed it. It still holds up in a lot of ways. You can tell it's kind of old, but this looked really good. I was surprised. I was expecting it to look, I don't know, just something indie about it, because this was originally a PS2 game and it would have been a higher production quality for back then. I expected this to look certainly better than PS2, but it looked really good. It looked really clean. textures and stuff to look really good on it. Seems like they're putting a lot of work into this, and I was worried about Psychonauts 2 because there was some money issues and stuff that was going around with one of the co-developers, and it looks like Microsoft might have helped out with that by buying them. So really glad to see that Psychonauts 2 is fine. And actually, I'm really glad to see that Double Fine is with Microsoft. Microsoft and Phil Spencer, especially Phil Spencer, because if it was anybody else but him, I'd be a little bit worried. But it seems like they're letting all their studios that they bought make the games that they want to make. And they're just leaving them alone, just be like, just make a good game, you know? Alright, Gears had a new multiplayer mode for called Escape, where you go through areas and you try to get from one end to the other. Looked cool. I said during the live stream that this would probably be served better in a different type of game other than Gears. I think Gears is a weird game to do it in, since it's like a cover-based game and it doesn't have a whole lot of fluidity really compared to something like a Titanfall or a Call of Duty. I almost feel like this would be a game mode better for games like that. But we'll see. Maybe they're changing some things up in the movement and all that. But it was okay. It was a good showing. But then they had a trailer that was supposed to be for the single player, and it was just somebody's face. And okay. You know, I didn't see any gameplay. To me, things first and foremost are gameplay. If I had to say one thing about this event, there was not enough gameplay shown, like direct gameplay shown of a lot of games here. Cyberpunk included. Alright, I know this one is a big deal to people, and that's why I'm saying it. So, one of the big things ever since like back in the PlayStation Vita's, Phantasy Star 2 Online was supposed to come to the US, and it didn't. It kept on getting delayed, and then Sega just never said anything, and it never came out. And there's people that go through a VPN to play this game on Japanese servers. Whatever Microsoft did, it's finally coming to the US, and I think that's nuts. It's a little late. Like I said, this goes back to like the launch of the Vita. But it's exciting for a lot of people, and that's why I'm mentioning it here. That's pretty cool that they were able to get that to work. I don't know what happened. There was that rumor a little while ago that Phil Spencer went to Japan, and people were wondering what he was doing there. Maybe this is what was going on. Alright, From Software, makers of games like Bloodborne on the PS4 and the Dark Souls series and Sekiro, are now working with, or have worked, I guess already, with George R.R. Martin to come up with a new game called Elden Ring. They didn't show much. It was really kind of abstract. I didn't get like a good sense of gameplay or anything once again, but it was a good announcement. It's coming. I feel like this is a game that's probably still like late 2020, 2021, so it seemed like they were just kind of like, hey, yeah, it's a real thing. Here you go. A brand new, and might I add, very photorealistic flight simulator has been announced, and it looks beautiful. It's more Flight Simulator. I know a lot of people really get into it. A lot of people spend a lot of money on their PCs to come up with like wheels and gauges and all this other stuff. So if all that's supported right, this is really cool for a lot of you guys out there. So yeah, new Flight Simulator coming. Did they say this year? I don't know. I missed that part, but it is coming. Alright, they showed some aspects of Halo Infinite. It seemed like it was in-engine. It looked really good. The game is also coming to Xbox One though. And for them announcing that this is coming out launch day for Xbox Scarlet, whatever that ends up being, is a bit strange, saying that it will support last generation. So it has to be pulled back in some kind of way, I think. So it'll be like one of those games that you'll see like, oh, this came out at launch, but the games later on look so much better and are actually taking full advantage of the hardware. But I've had a feeling for a while that generations at Xbox are done. I think when Scarlet launches, I could see a price drop of Xbox One X, and this Scarlet being inserted in there in some kind of way as the more expensive console. Now I've heard rumors of another one that is supposed to be like a 1080p only box. It's supposed to be cheaper, but be not quite as powerful as Xbox One X, but have the Zen 2 cores and stuff like that in there so they can get the higher frame rates. They didn't show any of that. They didn't talk about any of that. They didn't acknowledge any of that. That's been a rumor for a while. So I'm kind of curious if that'll be a thing, or if they'll just like step down Xbox One X and games will be, crossplay on those two systems for a while. Xbox One X could still be a very good 1080 box for a while. It's just that the Jaguar CPUs is kind of what limits it. So it would be weird to have one system where the frame rate is like locked at 30 with a lot of games, and the other one where the frame rate could be at like a good 60 with like FreeSync. Both do have FreeSync capabilities though, so and I think that's something that'll be more important as time goes on. When people start buying more and more TVs, you'll just have TVs with FreeSync built in, so that'll be a cool technology. If you don't know what FreeSync is, it doesn't matter. It'll just make the game look a little bit smoother to you. It's a good thing overall. They should support it, but it's not something that you should go out of your way to look for unless that's something you really want. Alright, so let's talk about the direction that Microsoft is going. Phil Spencer years ago came out and talked about it a little bit after he took over. And since then they've been buying up game studios. And since then they've worked with Nintendo and other people in some ways to get things like crossplay going, some of their games that were exclusive to their console over to other consoles. It seems like, and also stuff on PC. And it seems like he is trying to make Xbox more of a brand that expands across other devices. And although a lot of people think that there needs to be this console war, or they need to have exclusives on their console so people buy it, I don't really see that. I think Microsoft and I think Phil Spencer sees the writing on the wall in the way things are going. And I think he understands that what you need to have is compelling games, regardless. And they need to be the key holders of those games. Now, that means it's up to them to share it wherever they want, but as long as they're still the key holder, they're okay with that. Now, they've also said that these games are coming to Steam as well. And that's interesting. I don't know why they would do that. There's not really an advantage to them to do that. But it's a good guy move. Like, nobody's a bad guy here. When you try to make your games accessible to anybody, no matter what the hardware is, I don't see it as a bad thing like a lot of other people do. I actually see it as ultimately a good thing. Now, the other thing that's been going on is, although Xbox obviously does not have as many consoles out in the wild and in the hands of people as, say, PlayStation does with the PS4, when you look at the way that these consoles are going, they're sticking with things like x86 and Radeon hardware. And they're just upgrading it over time. Microsoft has the benefit of their DirectX platform. And DirectX can scale across multiple hardware. It already does on PC, it has for years. When I look at what they're doing here, they seem to have a clearer direction than anybody else. And then today they announced your games on your current Xbox, if you own it, just like you've been able to do for a little while with PS4, you'll be able to stream it to another device like a phone or something, or a tablet, or whatever. It seems like even laptops and stuff like that. So, but then they also have xCloud. Now, they've been wanting to get people over on digital for a while. For various reasons that may or may not actually exist or be a valid reason. I think that physical games, they'll allow you to stream it as long as it's in the tray, but after a while they'll just push, hey, you're only going to be able to do this with digital purchases on our store. And good or bad, there is a convenience factor you need to think about here. If you can buy the games on their store and play it on your PC or whatever natively, or be able to stream it, that's a good thing for the consumer, I think. It makes things a lot easier for the consumers to do. I can see xCloud getting to the point where you buy the game for like an Xbox, instead of waiting for it to download to your Xbox to play it natively in case like the internet or something like that goes out. Like during that download process, if you've got the bandwidth, you can go ahead and start the game and start streaming it, and then the cloud service will just transfer your save over to the game on your hard drive. That would address a lot of issues too, and still allow you to use the streaming service for people with like things like data caps. so you're not eating up your data cap, but you still have the service as like a weird backup the other way around when the game's not on your drive, or you're out someplace else and you want to play it, but you don't have a good enough hardware, but you have the screen and the controller. It's interesting the way they're going, and it seems like they're using their base that they've built up right now, their current base, and are starting to slowly transition into streaming and into multiple places. And no, I would not be surprised if a current Nintendo Switch or a future Nintendo Switch has the streaming app on there eventually. I wouldn't be surprised if Game Pass gets to the point where, say, you buy the PC version of the Game Pass, but you don't have a mouse and keyboard or PC, or you get like their ultimate version, and you will play, I don't know, let's just say Baldur's Gate 3 if it's an example and it's on the Game Pass, and you just hooking up a mouse and keyboard to your Xbox, or getting a wireless like one for your couch, and streaming that version to your Xbox or your Switch or whatever. And I think they're really trying to be all-encompassing and trying to make it overall ease of use with the current technology available now and what people have. I think they realize not everybody's going to go streaming, but if they can build these two things up simultaneously, when we go to the ultimate future where everything is streaming and there's no console anymore, I think they will be far better off and far more set than somebody like Stadia or Google just trying to do just streaming by itself. There's a lot more incentive there. But I do think at the end of the day, I think things like Xbox Live Gold needs to go away. I think they need to take the money that they're getting from things like Game Pass or their streaming service and figure out how to funnel that down to take care of the online infrastructure as well, instead of having like multiple charges across multiple things. So they're heading in a good direction. It's definitely a good direction for them. And I think as long as Phil Spencer's at the helm, it's probably a good direction for the consumer. But if he leaves, I could see somebody not having an idea or really being self-serving for themselves and the Microsoft company screwing this up. So hopefully they keep Phil Spencer there for a while. Hopefully he lays out a good groundwork and it works out for all of us. So anyways, if you guys want to see the whole conference, like I said, it'll be on after this. If you like this kind of content, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. I know it went a little long. I wanted to make sure I got all my thoughts in there. And I will see you guys in the next video, which will probably be around Tuesday when I record the live stream for Nintendo. So anyways, later guys.